Vox and King Beau Part 10. Things have gotten strange. Things have gotten strange. I don't know how else to put it. I'm going to describe things as best as I can, and then give you more stories. To be totally honest, I don't know now if the stories are memories I'm uncovering or something else. Every time I try to think back, there's more. And I mean, maybe there are tons of them, because we're talking about a good 4 years of my life here. But I just can't tell anymore. Anyway, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain what happened last night. My friend Chris came over after having that episode of sleep paralysis. I told him everything. The voices, going to the therapist, the radio, seeing someone in my house, Beau, all of it. His answer, being the stoner that he was to smoke a bowl. He figured that would help me relax, maybe get some sleep. This is pretty embarrassing to admit, but because I was raised by a good Christian mother who drilled me on the importance of never using drugs, I've only ever smoked pot like twice. But these past few days have been so rough, and my work doesn't drug test anyway. I figured, why not? It's not like it could hurt anything. So yes, I was going to finish the story, but then I got high. We lazed around, watched a movie, ate sandwiches, and both must have passed out. The next thing I remember is waking up in my living room. The TV was on, but on silent static, probably because we were screwing around with the DVD player. Chris was asleep in a chair, so I decided to peel myself off the sofa and head to the bedroom. I flopped onto my bed and passed out again. I mean, the weed was pretty strong, but I think this more had to do with the fact that I was so exhausted. After this, I had some kind of dream. In the dream, I woke up because I felt someone take my hand. At first I didn't open my eyes because I thought it was Chris being stupid. But slowly, I realized that the fingers were ice cold and bony, and they were just wrong. I don't know how to explain it. It was like someone picking up my hand who's never held hands before. The fingers were bending around it wrong. I opened my eyes in the dream, and there he was. It was the same man I had seen looking over the edge of my bed. He rose up from the edge to tower over me. He had the same albino skin, milky eyes, and white hair. He smiled at me, and his lips pulled back to show rows of sharp teeth. It was like looking at a crocodile opening his mouth and letting his jaw just hang there. Now I realize why I didn't know whether he was wearing cloth or armor. His clothing was deep black, blue, and gray, but made up of weird trophies and prizes, all woven together in something intricate, and I guess almost regal. I was afraid. I can't lie and say I wasn't. But maybe the weed, or just the dreaminess of the dream state, were what kept me from freaking out and bolting this time. I mean, there he was, in all his hideous glory, just like I remembered. I didn't even take my hand from his. Looking back, maybe a part of me realized that it wouldn't have mattered anyway. He had me. I did, however, remember everything you guys had been telling me. I asked him, "How do I know you're really Beau?" He bent over, though the movement wasn't human in any sense. It was too graceful, and there was too much smooth curving. He brought his face close to mine, staring right into me with those milky eyes. And I swear, I thought for a moment he was just going to rip me apart right there. But he moved to the side and pressed his head against my right temple, like a big dog. It wasn't cuddly or comforting move in the traditional sense, but it was almost affection. He said,
Little Jeep.
Then let out another one of those big sighs made of 12 different voices all woven together. You all might not be aware of this, but the SUV Jeeps are named after a character in the Popeye cartoons. Eugene the Jeep was a magical creature that had a fourth-dimensional brain. He could walk through walls, teleport, all kinds of stuff. And he had to tell the truth. He would also eat orchids. When I was a kid and would visit my grandparents, I would watch these old Popeye cartoons. Eugene was by far my favorite character. I thought he was adorable, and I loved all his special skills. I'd even run around saying Jeep like he did. Both thought this was bizarre, but he tolerated it, and even called me Little Jeep. No one else knows he did this. Even I had forgotten about it until I heard it. I don't know if this passes anyone else's test, but at the time, it was good enough for me. I looked at him and said, "But you're not real. You're just my imagination." He rose back up and continued his crazy smile. I thought he was going to say something, but suddenly his face changed. His teeth remained bared, but his lips twisted as best they could into a snarl. His eyes rolled back, and his head soon followed, tilting with his chin up like he was looking at the skies. His neck lolled to the side, and his eyes slightly shifted out the window at nothing I could see. What I did see, what was coming out of his mouth. It was like some kind of deep black tar rolling out from between his teeth. I can't even describe the stench. I've never smelled anything like it. It was like decay, and old blood and rotten lettuce. But that doesn't even begin to cover it. The worst part is, I realized it was crawling. The ooze was beginning to separate into thick, slimy maggots as it moved down his chin. I said something stupid like, "What?" or "Beau?" Because at this point, I had no idea what to do or what was going on. Aside from never smoking weed again, the only thing I knew was that I was completely in over my head. He lazily turned to look at me, and his already wide eyes got wider, almost as if straining to see me. When he spoke, his lips and mouth didn't move, but the muscles in his throat tensed, and the voice was clearly coming from him, not in my head or anything like that. He was going to say something else, but his chest spasmed, and he started to vomit the thick tar maggots with deep, painful retching. Before the soup could hit the ground, the maggots became bloated and grew legs. It took me a minute to realize that I was staring at a swarm of black beetles. They buzzed so loudly, I thought my ears were going to start bleeding. I could hear my teeth vibrating in my skull. I thought my brain was starting to pulse, and there was pressure in my head that pounded against my eyeballs. The beetles were crawling up Beau's form, but I was starting to see stars. I couldn't breathe, and my heart felt like it was straining with all its might to pump blood into the soup of my mind. I didn't remember anything else after that. I blacked out. I woke up with the worst dry mouth I've ever experienced, and a splitting headache worse than any hangover. I was in my bed, but there was no pool of tar or evidence that anything had actually happened. My friend had already left for work. When I had downed some Tylenol and recovered enough to function, I called him up and asked him if he noticed anything unusual last night. He said no. I'd just gotten up and gone into my room, and he'd curled up on the couch. After that, my therapist called personally to let me know that my insurance had approved a CT scan, and it's scheduled for Wednesday. I told him this was a good thing, because I'm completely losing my mind. I told him about the dream. He said not to worry. These things happen, especially if you're dumb enough to use drugs. Let this be a lesson to all of you. So that's where we stand. There's more. That's just what happened today, leading up to where we are now. Sorry, I'm just trying to give any relevant information I can, on the off chance it could be of use. I'm a little scatterbrained right now. That nightmare really shook me up. I usually have vivid dreams, but that was a cut above the rest by far.